Hi, it's Thursday and it's 7 o'clock here in London, and I'm David Shepherd. So this must mean it's the David Shepherd's Facebook Live. Live here from London, 7 o'clock, which is 1800 UTC at the moment, since we're in British summertime here in London. So good evening if you're here in the UK. It might be good morning if you're elsewhere in the US. It might be good morning as in tomorrow morning if you're like Sue Warren, who's been watching from New Zealand. And we do a Facebook Live every Thursday night. Just put it on my watch, make sure I don't run over. Every Thursday night at 7 o'clock, and it's about NLP, it's about hypnosis, it's about timeline therapy, and it's about HUNA. And I've asked out for some requests as far as like what people would like me to cover. And I got 2 requests from the NLP Transform the Planet group over the last couple of weeks. One from Mark McDermott about business coaching, and then from another member called Stephen Etheridge. And Stephen asked specifically about how do we go about prospecting for business coaching in the digital age. So I thought what I'd do is actually work around answering both of those, or giving both requests, both for Mark and Stephen, here on tonight's Facebook Live. Firstly with Stephen, because I think if we go for the order and sequence of the whole thing, the natural progress is 1, prospecting, 2, selling, then coaching. So let's actually do it in that order. So Stephen, you know, when I started out in 1993 doing NLP, business coaching, business consulting, and business training, then my primary source of business was by cold calling, picking up the phone, calling managing directors, sales directors of what I guess we'd call today small, medium size enterprises, although also some larger organizations. And you know, I got pretty good at it. I got pretty good at pulling appointments from cold calling, but it was like hard work, hard slog, and a little bit soul destroying some days. And those of you who've done cold calling will know what I'm talking about. I think in the digital age, we can to a certain extent turn things on their head and actually have people come to us rather than the other way around. So, you know, this is a prospecting method that we use quite successfully in a number of different businesses, a number of different arenas, whether it be business coaching or whether it be one-to-one therapy or public trainings, which is to, you know, if you think about the funnel, we use a lot of PPC up here on either Google or Facebook, and also though using social media to fill our funnel. What we're gradually doing is pulling people down here to some form of event, some kind of educational event, what we might call educational marketing. I think educational marketing works very, very well. So we run some kind of event here. Now that event could either be online or offline. So online being something like a webinar, offline being a live seminar. Personally, I still find that my conversion is higher with the offline seminar, where we're actually with the people face to face rather than online on a webinar. I'm a big fan here of selling one-to-many, whereas the old style of cold calling was one-to-one. You made, you know, a whole series of prospect calls, you got one meeting, you're selling one-to-one. Here we can really simplify things, 1, by having people come to us, and 2, by actually selling one-to-many, or prospecting one-to-many, because we haven't actually sold anything at this point in time, because this, for me, would either be free or at the very least very, very low price. This brings a big thing into this, in that, and this is something I recommend to all of my students that want to get into coaching, that want to get into business training, want to get into therapy, is learn to speak. Learn to become an excellent presenter. because of this wonderful opportunity of being able to sell one-to-many. It also gives us a great competitive advantage because the majority of people are not comfortable in the least presenting or speaking, whether it be to camera or whether it be to a live audience. So if you can get to yourself to the point where you're comfortable doing that, even get to the point where you love doing that, that really puts you ahead of the game, because the majority of people are actually scared of it. I mean, I've said in many of my programs before, the number one fear in the US is speaking in public. To put that into perspective, the number two fear is dying. Here in the UK, number one fear is spiders, number two fear is public speaking. So if we put that into perspective, if we're willing to get up in front of an audience, if we're willing to get up in front of a camera, then it puts the streets ahead of the competition. But also, and this I would say is more for the offline live seminar rather than the online webinar, is it gives us a lot of credibility, it gives us a lot of authority, which all starts to build the way to getting a successful sale. Obviously, the downside to the offline seminar is that you're going to have costs. You're going to have costs for the venue, teas and coffees, etc. Whereas with the webinar, I'm not saying there's no costs, but it's a very much more cost-effective solution. And what I'll be looking at doing here, once we take them through the pipeline through here, would be the next step in the funnel would be a one-to-one. And again, I prefer that to be face-to-face. Though, of course, what we could do is we could do it over Skype or FaceTime. I'm still very much into getting into physical contact with people. And on then successfully selling to them, we are then into the delivery of coaching, if that's what we're talking about here. So one of the things I want to look at is, firstly, now moving to Mark's question, is about business coaching with NLP. So let's differentiate, because what I see out in the marketplace at the moment is I'm seeing a lot of people saying that they're doing business coaching. And in actual fact, as far as I'm concerned, they're doing more kind of what I would call business mentoring or business consulting. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think the key thing is really in our own minds to be able to differentiate the two. So for me, pure coaching is asking questions. And that's it. Pure coaching is asking questions. I first learned to coach, become a coach, even before I was trained in NLP in 1990 with an organization called the Center for Achievement. And our most successful coach was a coach by the name of Paul Kalinauckas. And even in 1990, he was bringing in around about £100,000 of annual revenue from pure business coaching. So if you extrapolate that up to today, 27 years later, then we're probably talking about somebody who's bringing in at least $250,000, maybe 300,000 from business coaching. And I actually got to shadow Paul on a number of his coaching sessions. And from an NLP perspective, this is all he did, was he asked questions which we would call the well-formed outcome questions, or the keys to achievable outcome questions, and the meta model. And that was it. That's all he did. And by asking those particular questions, then what happened was that his clients found their own solutions, found their own way, which is the idea of pure coaching. Now, the benefit of that is that you can coach someone to improve their performance about something that you know absolutely nothing about. You don't need to be an expert in that field yourself to be able to do that. So your market for this is infinite. You could coach people in any business, even if it was a business that you weren't familiar with. And although very, very simple, things that we learn probably in the first 2 days of our practitioner training, well-formed outcome questions and meta model, his clients loved it. His clients, they would buy a year-long program, they would see him every month for a year, and at the end of that year, they would sign up for the next year and the next year. So, I think quite often when we think about coaching, we think about complex models and complex techniques, whereas in actual fact, we don't need that. It's just purely those particular questions. Yeah. Then we've got what we might call mentoring, and whereas coaching is asking, mentoring is telling. So here we do need to know the content of what we're talking about. So I find a lot of people who are saying that they're doing business coaching are actually doing business mentoring, or what I would have called in the day in 1990 business consulting. And I think to a certain extent, with the clients that I work with, I'm moving between the two. I'm part coaching and part mentoring, part coaching, part mentoring. Because as soon as I teach one of my coaching clients an NLP technique, for instance, then technically I'm not coaching them, I'm mentoring them. Yeah, and I can mentor them on that because of the fact that I might consider myself to be a little bit of an expert in NLP, having studied and practiced it now for over 24 years. So that's the actual coaching process itself. The thing that I want to focus on a little bit this evening is how do we go about selling that to businesses? How do we go about selling NLP coaching or NLP mentoring consulting to businesses? Because whether we're coaching the person around their relationship, whether we're coaching the person around their health and fitness, whether we're coaching the person around their business, the process is the same. Yeah, the coaching process is the same. And though, how do we establish value for a business person in the coaching process and in NLP? And because I know a lot of people who are very capable as a business coach, yet they don't have any clients. So that's it doesn't matter how good you are if you've got no clients, it's irrelevant. So what I want to look at tonight is how can we go about getting business coaching clients and establish that value. So probably if you're anything like me, over the years, certainly in the early years, then you attempted to sell the concept of coaching or sell the concept of NLP. And if you're anything like me, you discovered that it absolutely doesn't work. What you get in front of you is a complete blank face, and you are there with your arms moving around like a windmill. So how do we sell coaching? How do we sell NLP? Not only to businesses, but to anybody, to be honest with you. We sell coaching and we sell NLP by doing coaching and by doing NLP. So the person actually has an experience of it. And in my experience over the last 24 years, I've found that there are 3 key ways of really establishing value for a business person in the value of you coaching or mentoring that person using your NLP skills in their business. So let's talk about those particular methods. One of them, in fact, we've already mentioned. So just to put it into perspective where we are on the cycle here, we are here. We've got a one-to-one meeting, a one-to-one consultation with our prospective client, whether that be face-to-face or whether it be online. Now, first thing we need to talk about here is it's vital that you're actually meeting with the right person. The person that you need to be meeting with really is the person that you're coaching. It's the person that will be paying for it, and it's the person that will be receiving the value. So what I'm looking at here is a business owner, a managing director, maybe marketing director, maybe sales director is what I'm looking at. Somebody with a budget that they already have the emotional intelligence to know that the results that they get in the business and therefore the return that they get on their business is due to their thinking. So it's got to be with the right person, because if it's not the right person, either they're going to say, okay, I'm now going to go and talk to somebody else about getting the funding, or particularly for the third method that I'm going to show you, they won't have the numbers for the necessary numbers for that particular sales process to work. So the first method is actually one I've already mentioned, which is well-formed outcome questions. Or what I might call keys to achievable outcome. Questions. So picture this scenario. This is where we are. We are with a business owner of a SME business. And for those kind of people, every single decision that they make either loses them money or makes them money. So it's all around effective decision making. It's all around goal achievement. So this is how we set it up with the particular client. What we want to get from the client is a goal that they've been working on for a period of time, maybe a year or something like that. So it's a goal they've been working on for a while, and the result or the actual achievement of the goal is eluding them, as in they're not achieving the goal. That's a really important thing, because what we know from an NLP perspective is the reason they're not achieving the goal more than likely is because it's not well formed and they haven't gone through the keys to achievable outcome process because they don't know it. So we start out with that particular situation, and then we, as the business coach, ask them those questions. We absolutely know that at the end of being asked those questions, their experience of their goal will have fundamentally changed as long as it wasn't well formed in the first place. In our practitioner training, as an example, this is an exercise that we do at the end of the first day, where the practitioner elicits the visual submodalities of the goal before, then asks the well-formed outcome questions. The client doesn't even answer the questions. All they do is consider the questions. Then we elicit the submodalities afterwards, and the submodalities of that goal have changed fundamentally, which means just the questions themselves change the meaning of the goal. And when we ask the person, so how is your experience of that goal different now? They go, it seems way more achievable. It seems way more realistic. So there's a before and after. Contrast sells. That's the thing we've got to remember. So, I was doing this with a prospective client. I got halfway through these questions, and this prospective client says, "This is the wrong goal, David. This isn't what we want. This is the wrong goal." And I said, "Well, what's the right goal?" And he gave me a different one, and we went back up to the top again and started the questions again with the now right goal. And then my question to him afterwards was this. I said, "So if I hadn't have come in today, when do you think you would have realized that what you were working on was the wrong goal?" And what he said to me, he said, "Well, probably when we'd achieved it." And I said, "Well, when do you think that would have been?" He said, "Well, probably about a year down the line." And I said, "And how much do you think it would have, as well as taking a year, how much money do you think you'd have invested in the wrong goal?" And he said, "Well, probably at least £1 million. So what we've now got is this person's had an experience by me coming in and asking him questions in one meeting. It saved him a year and saved him £1 million. Do you think I've established value for me meeting this guy on a regular basis? You bet. I mean, if you think about it, and this is rather playful, but it is absolutely true, if I did that every single time I went in to see him, and I charged him £1 million for it, I would be free. Just think about that for a moment, yeah? So another one of my students, John Fielder, was meeting with a potential potential client for coaching. Did exactly this, because he'd done my coaching skills for NLPers training. Did exactly this process. This guy managed a huge budget within a utilities firm, and the guy said, "What are these questions you're asking me? I can feel things physically moving around in my brain." And John said to him, "Well, are these useful questions? Are these valuable questions?" He goes, "Yeah, I've never been asked questions like this before." Do you think John's established value? Absolutely. But John, being the kind of guy he is, said to this gentleman, "Do you think there would be value in other people in your team being able to ask the same kind of questions as me?" To which the guy goes, "Yes." So now, not only did John sell a one-to-one coaching program, he sold a training program as well. Yeah, that's the beauty of creating an experience and creating value there. If you're not familiar with the well-formed outcome questions, you want to find out more, then go to the I Am David Shepherd app at davidshepard.com. Go to training programs, go to NLP certification programs, and the well-formed outcome questions are in the NLP practitioner certification home study program, which is available in that app. So that the second means I find of selling business coaching is meta programs. Meta programs for me, we did an earlier Facebook Live about some meta programs in business. Meta programs for me is probably one of the most exciting areas of NLP for business. So, and it's covered in our Master Practitioner training. How I use these to sell business coaching, business mentoring, is that I'm face-to-face or FaceTime, Skype with my prospect. I do the rapid elicitation of all of the meta programs, which takes less than 10 minutes to elicit all of those meta programs. And then what I do is I interpret those meta programs and feed back to the prospect what those meta programs mean, what those meta programs tell me about their experience in their business and in their life in general. And people will think that you're psychic because you'll be telling them things about their experience that is absolutely true, but they hadn't even consciously been aware of it themselves. So again, experience, create experience for them. So with that, you'd be able to actually take them through the kind of situations and circumstances they find challenging. And ask them, if I were able to show you how to have those challenging situations or challenges you have with other people become really easy, how much would that be worth to you? And again, immediately you've got a contrast frame on the value. As long as you're charging less than the value they perceive on the result that you're giving them, the sale is yours. Yep. Now, the third method, you see I'm doing for time, the third method I find very exciting as far as this one's concerned. And I got it from Brad Sugars, the CEO of Action Coach. So it's not mine, but I do use it. I got it from a seminar that I was doing with Brad Sugars. And it really is excellent. So let me just take you through it. I've done some figures beforehand just to make it easier for when I go through. So again, it's vital that you're with the right person. So if we're looking at, let's say, a period in the business of a month, but equally it could be a year. And the figures that we want to get from this person, which is why it's vital that we're with the right person, is the number of leads that they get per month, their conversion ratio, the size of the average purchase per customer, the number of times in a month on average a customer purchases, And if we multiply those up, then that gives us their revenue per month. If we were to then multiply that by their profit margin, it will give us their gross profit. Yep. Now, interestingly, this is I find this quite fascinating, because accountants, even management accountants, will measure this. They'll measure revenue and profit margin and gross profit, which are outputs. What we're interested in are these things here, which are inputs. So let's just look at the power of this. So this was just some example figures that I came up with just to make it easier for me to do this in the amount of time that we've got. So let's say that we're with a particular person and we say, how many leads do you get per month? And they say, we get 1,000 leads. And let's say that they say that their conversion ratio is 10%, pretty low, 10%. The average number of purchases in a particular, so the average sale is £1,000. Obviously, if you're doing other currencies, just change that around. And the average number of purchases per month is 2, as in somebody will come along and buy 2 things of £1,000 in the month, which gives us a revenue of £200,000 per month. And let's say that they're operating at a profit margin of 30%, which means that they're creating £60,000 gross profit per month. Now, here's the NLP question for you. Do you believe, with what you know about NLP, that you could work with the person's lead generation system, like their website, their advertising, changing the language around of those using what you know out of the NLP language model, to increase their leads by just 10%? I know that 10% increase in leads, applying NLP to that kind of thing would be, I mean, if I couldn't get 10%, I would fire myself. So what we're talking about there is we increase the number of leads by 10% to 1,100. Could we, by working with the sales team, increase their conversion ratio by 10%, which means increasing their conversion ratio from 10% to 11%? Again, you know, my experience is that when you coach and mentor salespeople in NLP, their conversion ratio doubles at least, not just increasing by 10%. But let's just stick with 10%. And working again with the sales process, applying what we know about NLP coaching, NLP mentoring, increasing the average sale by 10%. So now it's at £1,100 purchase, and increasing the number of sales by 10%, making it 2.2 sales per month. Now, if we look at that and we look at the revenue now, the revenue is now £292,820. So we've put £92,820 per month on the top line, just by getting a 10% increase in each of these. But there's more yet. If we were working with their purchasing department around NLP negotiation skills, rapport building, etc., could we enable them to increase their profit margin by 10%? Easy. So now their profit margin is 33%, which means their profit now, if we work this out, if I write this up on the board for you, is £96,630.60. pence. Let me just put that down in black and white for you. So by us coaching that and mentoring in that business, we have increased the gross profit by £36,630 and 60 pence per month. Per month. Black and white. And it's with the person you're with, it's with the numbers that they gave you. Again, you know, if you're able to add that to their gross profit and you're charging less than that per month, you are now no longer a cost. You are an investment. Now, the way the numbers work out, I'll let you into a little secret here, because we're increasing everything by 10%, which is essentially what we're doing is multiplying things by 1.1. And we are affecting 5 variables. So what we're talking about is 1.1 to the power 5, which essentially always works out to 1.61. So when we do that particular process, the increase in the gross profit margin will always be 61%. So what we're demonstrating there is that by coaching and mentoring the right people in a business with NLP skills, we will be able to add 61% minimum onto their gross profit margin. Now, I don't know about you, but if I was a business owner, I would buy that. So if that's how I go about selling business coaching, and then also from those of you who know about NLP already, then the deliverable is actually very, very simple. What we'd be coaching the CEO around is actually implementing those things. What we'd be mentoring the appropriate departments, sales, and what do you call it? The procurement department in the appropriate NLP skills to be able to make those particular increases. So I hope that's been useful for you and it provided value. Get out there and sell some business coaching, go and turn some businesses around and enable them to get massive profit. And what we'll find is that within a very short period of time, everybody is going to want an NLP business coach. Thanks for being here, and I will see you next week, next Thursday, here on Facebook at 1900, 7 o'clock London time, 1800 UTC at this particular point in time, because we're still running on British Summer Time. I shall see you next week. Thanks for joining me.